Welcome to GeoLists. Today, we're going to be talking about Texas. Officially nicknamed the Lone Star State, Texas was the 28th state to join the United States of America on December 29, 1845. It has a population of 28,995,881 as of 2019, making it the second most populous state in the nation. Texas shares a border with the states of Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. With almost 270,000 square miles of land and water, it is the second largest state in the United States, followed only by Alaska. The Texas capital is called Austin, and it is located in the southeast of the state's corner. Now, let's get into some facts that you might not have known about Texas. Number 1. Texas has been inhabited for more than 12,000 years. The most commonly held theory on how North America was populated claims that the first settlers, known as the Paleo-Indians, arrived somewhere between 15 and 13,000 BC. These original settlers came into the continent from the far east of modern-day Russia via the Bering Strait into what is now Alaska. The ice sheets used to cover that stretch between Alaska and Russia, which allowed for pedestrian migration across the continents. The Paleo-Indians were hunter-gatherers, slowly spreading throughout the Americas while seeking better hunting grounds. Some of the first evidence of human activity in modern-day Texas dates back to at least 12,000 years ago. The only traces of these early nomads are broken spear tips and other crude stone tools. Number 2. There were at least 6 cultural groups in Texas when Europeans first arrived. Ultimately, these different cultural groups were just different Indian tribes who shared a background, culture, history, language, and customs. However, they were different individual tribes. They were spread out through the modern state of Texas, with the Puebloan tribes to the southeast and the Apachean tribes to the north. The Comanche tribes mostly lived closer to the Texas Panhandle region, while the Caddoan tribes lived by the northeastern border of modern-day Texas along the Red River. Finally, along the coast lived the various Attakapas tribes. Different tribes came and went over the early centuries of European settlement in North America. In the end, any tribes which didn't assimilate into the European culture were eventually pushed away to reservations. Number 3. The first Europeans to reach Texas were from Spain. The first Spanish explorers to get within sight of modern-day Texas were the conquistador and cartographer Alonso Alvarez de Pineda, who passed by the Gulf of Mexico and created the first European maps of the Texas coastline in 1520. From this point, Spain claimed the region as part of their colony, New Spain. It is unknown whether he actually made landfall or just anchored offshore. Shortly after, in 1528, 80 survivors of a failed Spanish expedition found themselves washed up on the shores of Texas. In the end, only 4 of those people survived, including the famed Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, who explored much of the modern-day state before finding his way to the west coast of Mexico, where Spain had some settlements. Unfortunately, de Vaca did not have any mapping tools, so he could not map out the regions that he had explored. Number 4. The first Europeans to settle in Texas were French who did it accidentally. Busy with conquering and colonizing modern-day Mexico, Spain left the Texas region more or less alone for the next 160 years. In 1684, a French colonization expedition left France to establish a colony near the Mississippi River, which the French had earlier claimed. The expedition was given poor directions, and in 1685 they landed in Matagorda Bay on the coast of modern-day Texas. Instead of attempting to find the correct location, they stayed in the bay and constructed Fort St. Louis. The colony was not long-lived, as a nearby tribe killed all of the adults and took the children captive in 1688. Number 5. In the 19th century, American citizens were illegally immigrating to Texas. Following the Mexican War of Independence in 1821, the region now known as Texas came under Mexican control. The region was unsettled, so the Mexican government allowed U.S. citizens to move in and settle there. In 1825, most of the region's population of 3,500 people were Mexican, but by 1834, there were already 37,800 people, and the majority were from the U.S. The new U.S. migrants tended to disobey Mexican laws, particularly those restricting slavery. To prevent this, the Mexican government prohibited any further U.S. migrants. Despite Mexico's best attempts, settlers from the U.S. ignored the prohibitions and immigrated illegally. Number 6. Texas was a sovereign state before it joined the United States of America. In the 1830s, the Mexican government misgoverned the Texas region, which unsurprisingly upset both the Mexican and American residents of Mexican Texas. This ultimately led to hostilities between the Texians, residents of Mexican Texas, and the Mexican military, which spurred Texas to declare its independence from Mexico in 1836, establishing itself as the Republic of Texas. The U.S. government recognized the Republic of Texas, but not Mexico, who still considered them a rebellious part of their country. The sovereign state lasted some 10 years before it was annexed by the U.S. government and made into Texas on December 29, 1845. Texas is nicknamed the Lone Star State because of the Republic of Texas' national flag, which featured a lone star, which can also be found on the modern state's flag. Number 7. Texas went to war twice in the 19th century. The first time they went to war was during the Texas Revolution in 1836, primarily motivated by the Texans' desire to own their own slaves. Their motivations were no different when the American Civil War came around in the 1860s. In fact, by this time, the number of enslaved people within the region had more than tripled, so it was no surprise that Texas joined the Confederate States of America in 1861. No major battles took place in Texas. Instead, the state was a massive contributor of men and munitions to the Confederate cause. Number 8. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. On Friday, November 22, 1963, the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was riding in a convertible limousine during a planned procession through the city of Dallas to garner support for the Democratic Party. At 12:30 p.m., 3 gunshots rang across Dealey Plaza as the motorcade passed by. Both Kennedy and John Connally, then the Texas governor, were struck by bullets. The motorcade rushed to the nearest hospital, but it was already too late for Kennedy, who was declared dead about 30 minutes later. Governor Connally was much more fortunate and later recovered. The assassin was caught just 70 minutes after the shooting and was identified as Lee Harvey Oswald, a former U.S. Marine. Oswald himself was assassinated 2 days later while being transferred to another jail. Number 9. The name Texas is based on a Native American word. In the 17th century, when Spain controlled modern-day Texas, several Catholic missions were founded in the region. The missionaries came into contact with the Caddo tribes, who taught them the word Tayasha, which translates to friend. The Spanish soon came to refer to the Caddo themselves as Tasha, although they spelled it Tejas or Texas. Over time, several different names were applied to the region, which is now Texas, including New Philippines and the province of Tejas. The latter eventually evolved into the province of Tejas, where the region came under Mexican control before becoming the Republic of Texas and then the state of Texas. What remains today in the state's name is the word friend, which is quite fitting for such a friendly state. Number 10. The convenience store 7-Eleven started as an ice storage company in Texas. Not every household could afford electric refrigeration in 1927, so they relied on companies that sold big blocks of ice to keep their food fresh. Several companies in Dallas merged in 1927 and formed the Southland Ice Company. While primarily only selling ice, the company soon began to sell various food items. The company changed direction again and began to sell various general retail goods and rebranded itself as Totem Stores, with each store featuring a Native American totem pole on display. Following the Great Depression and brushed with bankruptcy, the store shifted its focus towards convenient food and drinks. The company's name was changed to 7-Eleven in 1946 to reflect an increase in their store's business hours from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Number 11. Tex-Mex is not the same thing as Texan Mexican food. On the topic of food, there's a common misconception that needs clearing up. People, time and time again, think that Tex-Mex is the type of Mexican food that is eaten in Texas. It is true that Tex-Mex originated in Texas. Still, it is the way it is today because it was the Americanization of Mexican food at the time when Texas became a state and was adapted more and more to the American palate over time. As a result, Tex-Mex is often scorned because of its overuse of cheese sauce and oversimplified taste. Authentic Tex-Mex, and by that I mean Texan Mexican, cannot be more different. Texan Mexican cuisine is much closer to Mexican food found in Mexico's northern regions, and as such is closer to the food that was eaten in the area long before the Europeans first arrived. Number 12. Texas is home to the largest colony of bats in the world. If you're a fan of bats, then head over to Texas. Bracken Cave can be found just a little outside of San Antonio in the state's south, and it is in this very cave that the world's largest known colony of bats roosts every summer. The bats are Mexican free-tailed bats and are most commonly found in North America, and the official state bat of Texas. As their name suggests, they spend the rest of the year in Mexico. It is estimated that as many as 20 million bats roost in these caves every summer. Number 13. Texas is bigger than any European country. Texas is the second largest US state, only losing out to Alaska. The only European countries that even come close to the size of Texas are France, Germany, and possibly Spain. Now that we've made Texas seem significant, it is only fair to humble it because Texas could fit into Russia about 25 times. Number 14. Texas isn't just an enormous state, its economy is larger than most countries. We've already figured out that Texas is bigger than many places, but what's more surprising is how it compares to other places around the world economically. For example, Texas can fit into Australia some 11 times. Still, it has a larger GDP than Australia. Many European nations such as Spain and Norway have weaker overall economies than the state of Texas. Number 15. Texas used to have embassies in London and Paris. Of course, now that Texas is a state, there's no longer a need for it to have an embassy, but as we know, Texas hasn't always been a state. For a very brief period from 1836 until 1845, the region was the Republic of Texas and a country of its own. During this brief window, the government of the Republic of Texas sent representatives to London and Paris to gain European support for their new nation. Embassies are now long gone, but a plaque still stands in London where the Republic's embassy once was. So that's all I've got for you guys on the great state of Texas. If you liked the video, hit like, subscribe if you want to see more. There'll be plenty more content coming to you guys from Geography Lists, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.